Hello, today we are going to look at loops. So download this file 05 loops zip from the resource section for this lesson and place it in the FASM's projects folder. Thereafter, unzip it. You may now delete the zip file and open the new folder 05 loops. Let's open the loops ASM file and let's run it to see what it does. Click on Run, compile, and now you have a new exe file. So we are going to go to this folder, so just copy this path and open your command prompt, type cd and right click and paste the path. Press enter. Type dir to list the content and you should see a loops.exe file. Now let's run it. Press enter. Now enter any number. Let's say 3. Press enter and it prints 1, 2, 3. Let's run it again. Let's enter 10. Press enter and it prints 1 to 10. So this program asks for a number and prints all the numbers from 1 up to that number. So it does that using something called a loop. So let's take a look at the code. Over here we declare 3 strings. The first string, enter num, is to prompt the user to enter a number, which is this string here. Then the second string is to output the message, which is the numbers 1, 2, and 3. So the format is using %d. The format specifier will be replaced with an integer. D stands for digit, which means integer. Then it prints the carriage return character and the line feed character, which together is known as the new line character. It prints a new line character so that it will go to the next line after printing the number. And then the last is counter, which we don't use, so you can actually delete this, you don't need this. Next will be 4 more strings under the BSS section. And the first 2 strings are used by the Windows API, input handle and bytes read over here. The max number variable is used to store the number after it has been converted from string to number. The input string is used to store the input from the user. So if the user enters 3, it will be stored in input string and then subsequently converted into a number and stored in max number. When the program starts, it will print the enter num string to show this enter a number message. The enter num string comes from here. Then it will get the input handle, which will be required for the next function, read file. Read file will then read the input typed in by the user. So if the user types 3, 3 will be stored in the input string. Then the next function, string to unsigned long, will convert the input string into a number in base 10 and store it in EAX register. And this line will store that number into the max number variable, which is declared up here. Then here is where the loop starts and the loop ends. In order to do a loop, you will need at least two things. First is a counter to count how many times you are looping. We use ECX and assign it the initial value of 0. And we also need to have another register to print the current number 1, 2, 3. And we also initialize it to 0. And then we have a label. This is the start of the actual loop. And this label is referred to down here. So when the instructions finish, it will jump back to the label over and over again in a loop. So each time it jumps up, you increment the counter and then check whether the counter has exceeded the max number. The max number, remember, in this case will be 3. And initially, ECX will be 0 and then increment to 1 and then compare it with the max number. So when you compare like this, ECX is 1, max number is 3. So here we are checking if we have hit the max number. If we have not exceeded the max number, then it will not jump. JA means jump above. That means jump above if ECX is bigger than max number. So JA is to check whether the ECX is bigger than the max number. If ECX is not bigger than the max number, this will not jump. But if ECX is bigger than the max number, then it will jump to this label, exit program, down here. And that will quit the loop. So this is how we keep track of how many times we are looping. Each time we loop back to the top, you increment ECX by 1. So eventually, ECX will become bigger than max number. And that is when you will jump out of the loop. If in this case, ECX is 1, it will not jump, but instead it will increment EDX. So EDX initially is initialized to 0. When you increment EDX by 1, it becomes 1. The next thing you want to do is to print. So all this is to print this EDX value. But before you print, you need to save your registers. That's why we are doing this too. Why do we need to save these two registers? Because when you call any function, the function may make use of the registers and corrupt the values in them. So if it's important for you to use the ECX and EDX register in the main function, then make sure you save a copy first before you call the print function or any other function. So that is why we are saving these two registers, the values stored in those registers. So we push these two to the stack in order to save the registers. Then we call the function. After the function is called, we pop back the saved values back to the registers. So this two is used in conjunction with this two. This two is to save the register. This two is to put back the original value in those registers. And the order of call is opposite. So if you push ECX first, followed by EDX, when you pop, you should pop EDX first, followed by ECX. So after you have saved your registers, then you will make the call to the print function. So this push EDX here is to set up the parameter for the printf function, which you have studied before. So we are going to push the EDX value, which is 1, and then we're going to print it. So the printf will print the output message, the first parameter, and substitute EDX inside it. So what you get is over here, output message contains the %d format specifier, which will be replaced by EDX, the second parameter, EDX. So it will print 1. And then it will go to a new line, because at the end of this is a new line characters. Thereafter, it will pop back the original values in the ECX and EDX registers, and then jump back to the loop. And the whole thing repeats again. So eventually, ECX will become larger than max number, and the jump will take place, and it will exit the loop. So it will jump out of the loop and end the program here. So this is how a loop works. So basically, you need to have a counter. You need to have a counter. The counter is important, and you need to increment the counter and check the counter so that you can exit the loop when the condition for exiting is become satisfied. So that's all for this lesson. Try to modify this to do other things with a loop as an exercise. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.